Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad you guys are here. This one is so good. It was such a pleasure to get to talk with Scott Edwards of Elevated Gains. And this is podcast episode 199. And he pointed out to me after we stopped recording that Tom Brady was draft pick number 199. And so he is feeling really good about this episode. And it was so fun for us to review everything that we've done in the last year to get him to his business where he's at now and to get some of those lessons learned. And he was telling me after we stopped recording, he's like, man, I forgot like how hard that was. We were in it. It was not easy when the business was making no money and it was on pause, having to do all this background stuff. And it was just a slog. But now to be on the other side of that and to be celebrating every week the big wins that he's having and the tremendous response he's getting at farmers markets, all because we did this really thoughtful, intentional work. And Scott showed up in Master Your Business and did so much of the work there. He is doing his own learning. He's in my 10X mastermind and really engaged in that. And so I just hope that you really get some good lessons. I actually recapped at the end and I'm going to list them out for you now, what those 3 things are so you can be listening for them. But number 1 is constraint, that Scott is willing to say no to things, even though it might make him a little bit of money, even though it might be the right thing to do. He's willing to say no and lower the list of things that he has to do to be more successful in those couple of things that he chooses to do. He's got patience. He's got a real eye for the long game of this and that it takes way longer than we think it will. And he's finally accepted that over all these years. And so I love that about him. And the third thing is he's willing to hire. He's willing to make investments in people that are going to help him skip the line. He doesn't want to keep paying for this business with time. Like it's a blend, right? And I mean, unless you have unlimited supply of cash, you're going to have to put some amount of time in, but he recognizes that he can pay for experience and get back some of his time, like get there faster. And so I really appreciate that about Scott, but he doesn't just do it carte blanche. He's very thoughtful about it. Lastly, I'll just add, like, he is somebody who's just always learning and growing about himself and really using entrepreneurship as a vehicle for self-growth, which is so fun to see. All right, on to the episode. Welcome to Your Food Business Success. This podcast is for early stage entrepreneurs in the packaged food industry ready to finally turn that delicious idea into reality. I'm your host, Sari Kimball. I have guided hundreds of food brand founders to success as an industry expert and business coach, and it's gotta be fun. In this podcast, I share with you mindset tools to become a true entrepreneur and run your business like a boss. Interviews with industry experts to help you understand the business you are actually in, and food founder journeys so you can learn what worked and didn't work and not feel so alone in your own journey. Now let's jump in. Scott.
Hey, Sari. How's it going?
Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited.
I am excited to be on it too.
This
Listen
is
to
one
a
of
bunch. I'm
those.
looking forward to it.
There's definitely guests where I'm like, you're going to be on the podcast. I can't wait, but we got a little ways to go. We got to do the work first. Here we are, a year later, basically, since we met. So welcome to the podcast, Scott. You are with Elevated Gains, founder of Elevated Gains. And let's just hear a little bit about you and your story and tell us about Elevated Gains until we started working together.
Sure. So, Elevated Gains started 6 years ago now, in my kitchen in my first apartment when I moved to Denver. And it was basically born out of ignorance, which I think a lot of brands probably are, which is like you got to have to start with, which is great.
Passion and ignorance.
Passion and ignorance. But so my main thing was I started getting into working out, was feeling very sore, didn't know much about my nutrition. And so I personally started to learn about that and then got very frustrated. This is the most common thing ever. I hate saying this because it's so cliche, but there wasn't a good bar out there. So I made my own bar, but I wanted to put a different spin on it. I knew coming from being the small company, I wanted to have some sort of differentiator. So we started with CBD protein bars for workout recovery. And that was what we did for the first 5 years of business. For the first like 2 years of that, it was pretty much just like me playing around with recipes, having no idea what's going on. Then we started working with kind of a semi co-packer for a couple years, bounced around a couple places until we found our current spot, which we love. The guys at Base Camp, shout out. Love them. Saw them
Yes,
today.
we like base camp.
Um, yeah, they're awesome. Um, so yeah, the CBD business is an interesting place to be. I still believe in it from a medicinal and recovery perspective, but from the business perspective, the use case really didn't turn out to be there, or at least the I say this often, like at least the entrepreneur I was at that point wasn't able to execute on that product at that time. There was like a ton of hoops to jump through, and putting CBD on top of it just made things more difficult than even just starting a regular protein bar brand. Um, yeah, so I was basically doing that for 5 years, and then that
And
was
that
about a
wasn't a
year
full-time
ago,
job,
and
right?
then I
That
met
was,
Sari,
yes.
and everything changed.
Then you met me. Oh, yes, sunshine and daisies and rainbows.
hmm hmm
Scott, I should just warn everybody listening. Scott and I are gonna have some fun. He and I, we've hung out together. We have a lot of things in common, and I call us buddies in a, in a way.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're gonna have some fun today, and yes, there'll probably be some swearing. We can't not because it's in your tagline, but so if you
Yep.
got kids around, you might want to monitor that. And we're on video too. Woohoo! So if you're listening to this
Woo.
on an audio platform, you can go check it out on video. But were you working? Let me ask you a couple other clarifying questions just to get context of
hmm
where you were. So, was this a full-time thing when you launched your business or more of a side hustle or some
Definitely a
between
side
those?
hustle when I started. Well, when I first started, I was in between jobs. And then it was a side hustle for the better part of or 3 years. Then I had built up some capital and felt like I needed to spend more time on the business. So then took that and just basically lived off the money I've saved, went full time on the business for about 2 years, then ran out of money. So needed another job. So now I have a similar job, but less mentally taxing, I guess, easier to manage at this point. So yes, now still a side hustle, although I kind of refer to my W-2 as the side hustle, and I try to make this my main hustle. This is what my main focus is on, but not paying the bills yet.
At least mentally, this is like your main thing, but you
Yeah,
gotta, we all need a funding runway. Like there has to
for
be a
sure.
funding source for the business.
For
So
sure.
it always takes longer than we think. So you were, do you mind, how old were you when you launched the first business?
I was 23 when I like started it. As far as when we actually launched our first product, I think it would have been when I was 25, a couple years later.
Okay. And what made you think you could do this?
I'm arrogant, which I've now become a lot more humble through this process. Um, but yeah, definitely just some irrational confidence. But I think that that's probably where a lot of people start. And you have to,
Yeah.
you like if you knew the journey you were getting into when you were first starting, you might not start anyway. So you kind of got to have it to start, I
You need
think.
a little bit of a mix of like some arrogance and yeah, or
It'll
just
knock you
like
down a few pegs when you need it.
yeah, yeah, for
hmm
sure. I don't think any businesses would start if we really truly knew what we would have to go through.
Yep.
Right?
hmm
It's not just the overnight success that you hear about on somebody's TikTok video.
Right. Exactly. 6 years later, we're in our first farmers market.
Yeah, right.
It's funny. People be like, "Oh, so you're just starting," and I'm like, "Oh, no, 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 no. It's been a while,
Been around the block, but in a way, we did a
but kind
total
of just
like restart, right? We did a
yep."
let's like gear it back and then make some decisions. So we met
hmm
at a Colorado Food Works event, and I think I gave you a copy of my book, or maybe you'd already gotten it, and we chatted a little bit, and then we decided. So tell me like where you were at that point with the business.
So I would say after like 3 years, maybe, the thought of quitting is less often. So I wasn't necessarily like thinking about quitting, but it was more of a something needs to change one way or another. Like what I'm doing isn't working, whether it's how I'm doing things, or it's probably a combination of lots of different things. So wanted to start working with some people who knew what they were talking about, and I'm sure we'll talk about Alex Hormozy a little bit, but one of my favorite guys is he says you can either pay down your ignorance debt with time or money. And I had been doing it with time for 2 years and I was getting really tired of that. So started making money and started paying it down with a little more money. So that was kind of how I started with the coaching. As far as where I was at with the business, there had been, I don't know, probably 8 to 12 other CBD protein bars that had popped up while I've been doing it and then gone away. And for good reason, I think, on a lot of different fronts. And so we had done a lot of customer surveys. I had done a bunch of events in person. So I had a lot of kind of feedback that was all in my head. Did surveys on our actual customers, and we found out that people really liked that we had high 20 grams of protein. That's like basically my main constant as far as recipe development is the only thing that can't change is like every bar we have will have 20 grams of protein. Everything else is up for debate potentially, but they love that we have a clean ingredient label and it's not very much ingredients. And the CBD was kind of like, well, we could take it or leave it. There was a few people who really loved it, which is great, but you can't build a business on that. So trying to determine, I think, whether it was time to pivot. I'm not sure whether that was one of our first conversations that was kind of, I think, the
It was
headspace
early
I was in
on.
was figuring
Yeah.
out where, like, the decision wasn't made yet. I remember distinctly, like, we were having these conversations and like pros and cons and what to think about. But yeah, that's kind of where I was at, not really knowing where to go, but knowing something needed to change.
Yeah, and just for people listening, they're like, you may not realize what CBD is. I mean, it's not THC, but it's like, it's still regulated, more regulated than regular food products. And I mean, it posed all sorts
Yep.
of issues with social media, advertising, banking, transaction fees, um,
Like everything you can imagine.
cost of the
Potentially
product.
farmers markets. Tough to
Yeah.
say. Like we didn't get in the last 2 years and applied with the CBD bar. Like maybe, I mean, we had a lot of growth too, but it could have been affecting that. It's tough to say on some things, but
I remember going probably about the time when you were starting, going to local trade shows. And I mean, CBD was like the it thing, and
yeah,
everybody was putting CBD in their products. And I remember going to one like local show and everybody had CBD. And so you're like sampling all these products. And I mean,
yeah,
I know it's not supposed to do what THC does, but I was driving home going like, oh.
yep, yeah, yeah. It affects everybody differently, and if you take a lot of it, you definitely might feel it for sure.
Like coffee and chocolate, cracker,
Uh-huh.
gummies. I mean, it was just everything. So it was definitely, I am not seeing like people were guaranteeing like this is going to be the latest, greatest thing. And, most grocery stores still don't carry it. Some like Sprouts went big on it, but there's
Right.
issues, legal issues there. So it adds a lot of complication.
It
But yeah, we
does.
had that conversation and I remember that like that was one of your questions and you were so great. Like you still come to our coaching calls. You're like, I have these lists of questions. I've done my thinking around it and then let's check in and what questions am I not asking? What do I think? What do we need to test? So it seemed like fairly quickly you
Yeah,
have
we
a
made the
very
decision pretty
complicated
quickly.
business. CBD.
Uh-huh.
It's,
Uh-huh.
and complicated oftentimes means expensive.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I don't really want to run the numbers on what it would have all cost without CBD, but I'm sure it would have been maybe even like 50% less. Would have been a lot.
So you made the decision. Well, I mean, we did it together, but you ultimately decided to. We pulled out the CBD. So what else did we do? Because we had probably what 6, 7, 8 months of like going through, and now you're working full time again. You're back on the clock,
Yep.
so managing the
Hmm.
W-2 as well. But what were some of the things, if you can remember back? It seems like so long ago.
Yeah, I'll probably forget some of these. It's been a whirlwind. It was more or less a full rebrand or brand restart. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's kind of a second business in a way with which now I understand a lot a lot of times why people say your first business isn't the one that's going to work, which you can classify it however you want. That was one of the young, arrogant things. I was like, oh, well, I'll be different than that, whatever. But going through it a second time, it's very apparent why that is the case. So we had to do a lot of things. Rebranding is probably where I would say I'm either the weakest or have the most to learn or need the most help. So talked to a bunch of different people about rebranding, found some great partners. Adamari Creative, what free shout out, whatever, no free ads. They're awesome. So we had a rebrand, we had to redo our packaging, which the speed which we were able to do things for the rebrand was all helped with like the previous 5, 6 years. So like that's like a very something I don't really talk about, but I think about very often is like all those times. So I did the redesign for the packaging, which is the cheapest way to do it at this point, but it took me like a long time to figure out how to get that. Redo the recipes took a while. Talked with one of your friends, maybe is
Yeah,
Kim
we
your
talked with
friend. So
Kim.
talked with one of Sari's friends. Super helpful. Like a half an hour conversation really helped. I just had a few like pointed questions, and she was great. But the recipes always take a while, and it's a tricky thing because it's really easy to use those to procrastinate because you can always do it better, and it's tough to know when it's right. But again, after like making hundreds of different recipes, I have a much better idea than if I was just starting. So redo the recipe, rebrand, completely new website, moved away from, we were on WooCommerce and WordPress before because CBD stuff. So moved everything over to Shopify, which is epic. And one of
That's
the
right.
times I was thankful to not have a ton of sales because we did not have a ton of infrastructure to move. So like we didn't have to, the subscribers we had, I just emailed or texted them all, stuff like that. So applying to farmers markets, getting a farmers market booth set up. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. The list is like endless.
You
Those are
had to do
probably like the really big ones.
the trial run. You added a flavor
Do
too.
a
So
trial run, added a new flavor. Yep, which was huge. I think having at least 3 SKUs was like, that's probably another huge change that like I don't really think about that often, but having 3 flavors is really big.
it's an interesting mind shift. It's a mind game with people, right? And like pricing psychology and choice
Yeah,
theory and decision fatigue. It's like there's studies that I was just listening to something the other day. Like if you give people three options, that's good. If you give them four, it starts to become a little overwhelming. If you give them five, they often will walk away.
interesting. Well, we're gonna come out with a new flavor, so we'll test that.
Yeah.
Maybe we won't have all five of the market. I don't know. I haven't heard that before. We'll have to talk about that
Yeah,
more.
I would say like four, 3 to 4 is a nice sweet spot. But you could always be rotating in flavors, right?
Yep.
That's when you do like the seasonal thing. And yeah, having three was really, really great. That you added the lemon, which was is my favorite.
Yeah, I was running the numbers today. It's like very close with chocolate peanut butter, like indistinguishable, like which of them is selling the best, and then cinnamon is catching up. I think cinnamon is our top seller at the markets, maybe overall now. So still trying to like figure out exactly what people are loving the most, but it seems like all of them are doing well.
So yeah, you did a real like we just stopped the business. We decided we're not going to try. I mean, you tried to do like a little liquidation sale or whatever. But
Yeah,
it's just like,
yeah,
all right, let's
that
stop
didn't work
chasing
very
our
well.
tail after on that. Like just stop. And then we just
Hmm.
paused and then start basically, yeah, redid a business, but you already had good bones and you knew what you were doing. When you're brand new going into co-packing, it takes a long time. It usually takes
For sure.
multiple runs, but you had already done multiple runs with your co-packer. So you knew the consistency and things that you were going for.
Yep,
So it's pretty likely that that first trial run was going to work, maybe a
yep.
few tweaks.
And we did one of our CBD bars there too. So like we even had kind of a test run at the co-packer to
Yeah.
help out even more with that. So it wasn't like I had to go find a different one because my other one was CBD. So that
Yeah.
was helpful as well.
So then, and then you did some brand refreshing, and then we had the big question of the tagline.
Yeah. So what it's always interesting. I don't even know how to get into this. Thinking about branding is really interesting. I'm getting more confidence with it actually like more recently, which is good, but I think that really comes from just like understanding how we're trying to sell it, which again, understanding the last 6 years really helped me know what we need to go speak to. And the main thing that I heard all the time and that everybody comes up with is that that protein bars don't taste good or they taste terrible. And so regardless of what's in them, taste is the most important thing. So we ended up going with 20 grams of protein. Doesn't taste like shit because we don't taste like shit. And that's what really resonates with people because it's if you have a high protein bar, there's generally not any ones that don't taste good. And got some mixed feedback from my family, but that none of them have started a protein bar company. And pretty much everybody else loved it. So we ended up going with it. We've censored it a few different places with an exclamation, kind of censored it, like not really, but for kids, whatever. I don't know. We're still figuring things out, but probably 25% of the people maybe at the market are coming up after they see that. So
Yeah.
it's starting to hit well, and we got
Nice.
it everywhere.
Yeah, it was, it's one of those, it's a little bit of a risk. We talked about pros and cons and what could be consequences. Like we didn't want it to be front and center, like in a farmer's market application, like, and that's why you chose to do the exclamation point instead of
Hmm.
the real word. And just because, yeah, you're gonna have families and kids and things like that. But also, I mean, it's so ubiquitous, right? Like, and as a small brand, you have a little more flexibility and adaptability and it resonates with people. And yeah, some people are going to be turned off,
Yep.
and that's
Yep.
okay as long as we're like, I think, most people want to just stay in the middle and like, let me appeal to everybody. And I'm not saying everybody should go out and put a cuss word in your tagline, but we all try to stay so middle of the road with who we are because we want everybody to be okay with it instead of saying, actually, I want to turn half the people off. And then the other half are going to be like my raving fans who are like
Hmm.
so bought in on this. Love it. Is that what
Yep.
you're seeing at the market?
Yeah, for sure. It's it's like how I'm seeing that at the market. One, people love the line, but we definitely are having some bigger fans. We had two people this week came and got 40 bars like for themselves, which was sick. So we hadn't sold any of those the first 2 weeks. And these were people who had bought previously and come back. So people are starting to come back, which is great. But yeah, even at the market, like you get a really good feel of when people are coming up, like testing samples. You want to and it's not like you're treating anybody badly, but you want to give everybody the same energy. But you can tell like pretty quickly, is somebody actually interested? Are they not? If we push them, are they maybe interested? So yeah, it's an interesting game to kind of play for the 4 hours, especially when the booth gets busy and there's like two or three or four people out there testing and you're trying the bars and you're trying to figure it out. So it's on similar thread on the doesn't taste like shit. It's you kind of gotta figure out who the people you're gonna love are because that's what we're trying to do. I don't like eventually, yeah, I want this thing to be huge, but for now, we don't need that many very loyal people who really love our product to like make it a real business, I would say. And for me, a quote unquote real business, I would say, is if I can pay myself to eat and run it. That's just like my personal view. Like
Yeah.
right now, that's how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. And I love that. I think one of the things I really appreciate about you, Scott, is that you have a really good sense of like who you are, what you can tolerate. I mean, at this point in your life, you have flexibility, you don't have a
Hmm.
family, you don't have a ton of commitments. You're just like, I'm going all in on this business and I don't need extravagant, like this business doesn't need to fund an extravagant lifestyle for me to be successful right now.
For sure. Yep. My goal is for the private jet, like in my 40s with
That
some little
said,
kids.
you are ambitious, and this is not like, oh, I'm just going to have this small business forever. I think it's the combination of like, I think sometimes people have almost a little bit of entitlement or expectation that the business should be providing for them immediately, right? It's like, I birthed this baby, and now why is it
Yeah.
not doing its own laundry,
I
picking
think
up the
that's one thing
groceries?
that I think Hormozzi's helped me kind of frame a little bit, and just like honestly, like just maturing and growing up. Like I wouldn't say I kind of am was who I am today until probably like 3 or 4 years ago, really, even like 3 years into the business. So
Yeah.
there's been a lot of personal growth to get me there. But he always says he's like, well, if it's so black and white. It's like if somebody's business is making more money than you, well, they're better at business than you. So like go learn from them. Or if your business isn't making money, like then the work you're doing isn't good enough yet. So I try to look at it like that, and I having said that, I earlier had arrogance to start the business. I tried to take a learning perspective as much as I can and like know that I basically know nothing. Like I'm just starting a company knowing nothing. It would be very arrogant to think that I was just gonna figure it out right away with like having no clue how to do it. So talking to people like you, other coaches, I'm like literally even at base camp today, I was asking him what he thought about like how to throttle my inventory. I'm just like anybody I can ask how to
Yeah.
do things and what their opinion is. And some opinions are good, some opinions are not worth it. But just trying to learn at every stage, get better.
Hmm.
And eventually people will continue to vote with their wallets when we're good enough.
Being willing to, gosh, it's like when you start out with something, you think that there's not that much for you to learn. There's a certain arrogance, yeah, that just
For
it's
sure.
natural, right? Of like,
Yeah.
oh, I just got to figure these things out. It's fine. But then once you're, I think that's actually a true mark of an entrepreneur, of a real entrepreneur, is knowing that you don't know what you don't know, and there's so much you don't know. And you just can't
Hmm.
know it all. But like you're still gonna try and you're still gonna keep learning and you're still gonna go. And keep, that's not a stop, but there's a switch that gets flipped that you go from like, I know it all to like, oh crap, I
I
don't
know
know.
nothing. What's the
Let me
distributor? What's the MOQ?
Yeah. And just kind of that humble like ignorance of like, yeah, and being willing to ask those
Hmm.
questions and, tell me more about that and help me understand.
Yeah.
I talk with people all the time who like really need my support, but they talk way more than they're listening and they want to tell me all the things. And I'm like, okay, good
Hmm.
luck.
Yeah,
Come back to me when you're ready to be listen, to listen and to get
for sure.
feedback. So
I've never found someone who's like much further ahead. If you like ask them questions and they can see that you're really trying, like everyone's willing to help. And like there are people who are just starting businesses who are years behind me or whatever. And like I will be happily go out of my way to like explain anything. And nothing's done because if someone has gotten there, they've been through all of the same stages that you are,
yeah.
or they wouldn't have gotten there. Like
Yeah.
it's yeah. So
This industry is
people are
pretty
pretty helpful
generous, I
generally.
find. Yeah.
Hmm.
Both
Yeah.
ways, I think you got to be willing to give back. And
Yeah.
so let's talk about we've mentioned Alex Hormozy a couple times. You and I bonded early on over his book, 100 million. Well, I guess at the time he came out with $100 million leads. But prior to that, he had a great book has a great book called $100 Million Offers. So what do you love about that? How have you used it? And we highly recommend everybody go and grab that book, or there's a free podcast that you can listen to the book on him read the book.
Yeah. He always says it's free on his podcast, but it's worth the hard copy. So for me, I think there's a lot of people that have good information. There are obviously some that are better, but for me personally, like the way he speaks just works for me. And so that's like, I guess the main thing why I gravitated to him. And when this is kind of the same thing of not listening to people who haven't done it before. Like he's got like a multi-$100 million portfolio. He like knows what he's doing. And so he talks a lot about marketing and sales. Those are like his zones of genius, I would say, or he would probably say, which are my biggest deficiencies or biggest places that I like have lack of experience in. And so it really helped me just learn about how to think about even just like framing like what are the different types of outreach you can do like in a simple way, not pretentious, but from someone who probably knows it better than 90% of the people who are talking about it. And then he's got a value equation, which I don't have up, but that was really interesting to help think about how to frame an offer to people. And that was one thing that we were on the tail end of when we start, or at the beginning, we started working together in the tail end of the CBD. We were selling at $5 a bar, so we were selling 12 bars for anywhere from like $60 to $70 with shipping, which is like quite a big ask. And to be honest, like if it was me and some random person, that'd be hard. So like that offer wasn't good. And so working through how to try to get to an offer that people could like, and we're I wouldn't say we're a luxury product, but we're definitely on the higher end of protein bars. And so it's not a bad thing to charge more, but you have to be intentional about how you're explaining the value that you're giving to them and then actually be trying to do that to get
Right.
somebody to pay more. Because you can go buy $1 protein bars at Costco that are
Yeah.
the same as a lot of them. So you have to be differentiated.
But all of these products on my shelf behind me, like they're all more expensive. Like I think that's
Right.
why you need that kind of value equation, because you can't compete on price. Not if you're starting a business, you're small scale like this, there's just no way.
Yeah, there's literally no chance. And you'll probably still have terrible margins.
Right. So,
It's
I mean,
like,
you at least have a shelf stable product that's, I mean, it's not inexpensive, but they're not terrible margins. And you have
yep,
at least you have access to a co-packer that can do relatively small minimums. So those things have really helped you to get started. But
for
I
sure.
think that's such an important piece because a lot of people listening, and if they're thinking about, I want to start this business, they just think that, well, surely everybody's going to want to buy this because it's amazing. It tastes great, all those things, but we can't make it all on. Of course, it tastes amazing.
If you build it, they will not come. You have to make them come.
Right.
It's like you gotta work for it.
Yeah. So Alex Hermosi has something called Grand Slam Offer. So we actually did this in our 10X Mastermind that Scott's part of, and Danny came in, and same thing with Danny with Peak State Coffee. He's like, I read that book, changed my whole value equation on my website and all the things. And it's a really powerful thing. And I did that too, actually, with mine, right? And offered a guarantee and some of the things that he talks about.
Yep.
So if you're
Yeah,
looking for a powerful way to like frame up your offer and your strategy around that value equation, because I promise you, you're going to have to charge more than what people can buy it for in the store.
for sure. It's like it's got to be the best $20 you could spend on. That's like the hard copy too. Like it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's worth a lot of paid courses.
Yeah, he's so generous. He gives a lot away for free. So definitely recommend everybody listening go grab that. We're not affiliates or anything. We just we just
That would be very cool if we were, but we're not. I love that.
that would
That's
be
but
cool.
so this is one thing I learned from him of like creating word of mouth. Like he gave us so much value that we're just like he doesn't run ads on his stuff. It just
Yeah.
completely sells out and continues to grow month over month. And so that's a really big thing I'm trying to do with EG at the front of things is like there are lots of things we do that are more time consuming than they need to be or make it less profitable. And people are probably more familiar with like you can kind of look at it, I think of maybe like a career earnings pattern where you don't make as much money now, but you're going to make so much more money later. You could spend more amounts of type of thing. I try to really just do everything we can to like build that word of mouth, and we're starting, but you have to have the product, and finally we have a product that can start to go with that, and we're starting to see a little bit of people telling people, not to Alex Formosi's level, but like that's something I'm really trying to focus on is how do we provide such a crazy good experience and product consistently that then people tell people, and then we don't have to pay for marketing basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. I give away so much for
Yeah,
free, and sometimes I'm
yeah.
like, maybe I give away too much, but that's
No,
just
that's what he says. When it's scary, that's perfect.
it's scary sometimes, but good. So yeah, love his stuff. And I think you alluded to already, like you have gone through some personal growth and mindset shifts and things like that.
Yep.
I mean, I always say entrepreneurship is it's a vehicle for personal growth, whether you succeed or fail, quote
100%.
unquote. Right. So
No, 100%. I was going to say that earlier. It can sound like doomsday a little bit when like founders are talking about their businesses, but like I would do it again in a heartbeat, especially back then. Like the amount of just things you have to do and changes that you have to make internally just to make it work it'd be hard to force yourself to do it without having like a business to need to do it, at least for me. So yeah, it's been very big personal growth. So yeah, whether EG succeeds or fails, like I am a significant amount better for whatever the next thing would be. And like the last 6 years have built to this farmers market, like it's definitely all building to whatever, hopefully a private jet with elevated gains, but we'll see.
that's right. I mean, those guys who
Yeah.
started Quest, like that's nothing special. I
Well,
don't think
I
that.
know they had $1 billion company in 5 years. I'm a year past them, a little bit behind them. But
No
hey,
compare and
it's
despair. It's a
yeah.
very
No, I love Tom Bilyeu. I listen to him all the time. So got to learn from these people, right? They're better at
that's
business than you.
right.
What can you learn from them?
We can either despair, or we can say, well, we know it's possible,
Yeah,
right? It's
for
going to
sure.
take me
That was
longer
one
than
of the
five
big
years,
things of
but
why I wanted to start it. It was like the stories like that. And yeah,
okay. So you did the test run, the products came out great. I got some of the early
Yep.
samples. I've been a huge fan. You guys, if you watch my stories and stuff, like I was one of your first subscribers. So I tell all the people
Yes. Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm always looking for protein, and Scott and I've worked out couple times, and I'm searching for protein in my strength workout. So I love the product, but you got the product. You're like, okay, we can move forward with it. We got all
Yep.
the ingredients in, the new packaging, all of that stuff. And then we got to work on the farmers market stuff. So
Yes.
you and I worked on your farmers market application. It was right about the same time Danny and I were doing the increase your sales or up level workshop. So I'll put the
Yep.
link for that in there because I think Scott, you are a lovely testimonial of
Yeah, I don't
you
know what
put
it
all the
costs, but
principles. It's $197.
there
Has
you
it
go.
paid
We've
for
made well
itself?
more than that. Yes, very much so. Probably in week one.
Yes. So we got you into some farmers markets first, so that or got you into the one that you wanted, one of the ones you wanted to. So that was
Yeah.
a big
I mean, this was the third year we've applied too, so like that was something we hadn't been able to do before. So that was huge to actually get into one. And we got into probably the perfect market for us. It's not the it's big, but it's not the biggest. And it's like a great demographic over in Highlands. Come see us. We're at the end of the
yes.
street. So yeah, getting in was huge, but yeah, there was I mean, first we went through the application, which we looked at what we did last year, which was kind of sad to see what I had written last year, which could have been another reason why we didn't get in. But you helped me beef those up. And then there was a lot of work to do on getting the booth ready, which that was really helpful for both the workshop and just talking with you and Danny on what works, how much to do. And I think the main theme of the farmers market for us is just like, well, the main theme of like business at this point is it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it done and then change it. So just like testing everything. So we wanted to get basically to a point that we liked for week one, and then we've changed stuff the past 2 weeks. But just having kind of the shopping list was huge. It was so windy in week two. I haven't got to tell you this yet. This is a fantastic plug. I got the double-sided tape. I was like, Sari says I need it. I don't know what the fuck I need it for. It was so windy and it held down all my stuff. And I was like, she's gonna be so hyped. This like $6 tape held
That
down all my
tape
posters.
is incredible. We went
It
through
is.
that stuff by the boatloads at Whole Foods when in the marketing department because we use that tape on
Yeah.
everything. And
Yeah.
in the workshop, I give you my series favorite things list and all the links to my favorite things. That tape is seriously the bomb.
Yeah.
I
It
can't even
is.
tell you the
So
things that we held up.
shout out to your list. It worked.
Oh my gosh, I love that tape. So I know you could be like so in love with a product like that, but in any case, you have to get the workshop to find out the tape. But I love it. So yeah, you that win was nuts.
It was. It was.
Fortunately, you're tall, so you could like hold your tent down.
Yeah. Tried to get sand for the tent weights. We had these little bags of sand, and I was thinking about getting it from a golf course, and then I was like, I probably shouldn't be committing crimes for my business. So I didn't. But I went to Walmart, tried to buy some. I couldn't find anything, so I bought salt, and then that I didn't have enough weight, and then it was kind of wet. And so last week I got some sand. But yeah, it was very windy that week. But yeah, I mean,
You still
talking
had
to you guys,
sales.
getting our setup pretty dialed. I mean, like, doing all of the demos previously helped me feel comfortable in like the personal, like the in myself secure, but like we had nothing for a farmer's market booth. Like I had a booth for one event earlier this
I
year and
know.
sent a picture to you, and it doesn't look good. And you told me, which is what a good coach should do. But so we had to turn around a lot of signs and things quickly. But yeah, it came together pretty good. I mean, there's so much variability and things I'll probably still update. But yeah, it
It's an
seems to be
iteration
going well
for
so
sure.
far. Yeah.
It's so fun. It's always, I love it seeing the very first booth where I was like, good, here's a few
Uh-huh.
things,
Uh-huh.
some
There's a
notes.
few things to change.
And now it's like you're so dialed in, and we worked on the pricing and we made some
Yep.
really cool, I had some great suggestions. I love doing this stuff. I'm such a marketing nerd, and I always have like I throw out lots of ideas. Some of them are really terrible, but you tend to run with them, and I love it. Like the big box with the stickers and like
Yeah.
the like getting people
Yeah.
to I'm so glad we've had some big sales. The 40 bars.
I
That's
know.
amazing.
Yeah. I know. I would
You stuck with it. You almost gave up on me.
I know I didn't change my signage sheet yet, so I don't have the sign sitting next to it like we talked about yet. But yeah, I mean, and I think that and the two people who came up were like there was so many people this week who just walked right up and bought more bars, which was sick. So like I hope we can continue to see growth in terms of all those repeat customers. And we have a subscription thing on the table, but now we'll have to start thinking early because everything takes way longer than you think of how for like the last whatever couple months we're going to optimize and get people to come from the market
Yep.
and still continue through the winter with us until the next market season.
Yeah, absolutely. And you texted me and said, what's a range like if I did well or poorly or well? And I texted you a number for your first market and you like blew it out of the water. So and
Yeah,
you keep hitting new milestones. So
we've
I'm
gone
really
up
proud of
every
you.
week. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been
it's
good.
amazing. And you also launched with subscriptions on the website itself when you
Yep.
first launched. So you had a like
Yes.
founders rate kind of thing to get friends and family in. Start. How
Yep.
was it when you finally started making money again? Almost a year.
Uh, it's honestly it hasn't been that long. It was really the first market when it started to like feel like
Yeah.
it. It's great. It changed it. I mean, like, it's not like I'm making money. To be clear for everybody listening, I'm not still paying myself anything.
Right.
Clearly,
But
um,
there was
but
revenue coming in,
there's revenue
not all
coming
going
in.
out.
We're like gonna be close-ish to maybe cash flowing this run, which was one earlier than I thought, which like that when we if we do that, that'll be like, damn, all right, that was sweet. But I would say it really none of this is really about the money, regardless of how much I talk about the private jet. Like that's just more of a byproduct of what it would be. But it's really just helped me be able to like finally see that this has a chance at working. Like I've just been like banging my head against the wall for 6 years, kind of. And it's finally allowing me to like open up my perspective and like actually see how this could work, like and how this is going to jump over the next couple of years. So it's been really exciting. It's great.
Yeah, so cool. It's been fun because yeah, you had to take a back seat and just like, and there was some grind, right? It's like you got the W-2 job, it's demanding, it's got deadlines, and there's still work
Right.
to be done. I mean, fortunately, you got in the farmer's market, so you had that deadline. It's like, okay, we're gonna start
Yes.
selling here, but
Non-self-imposed deadlines are lovely.
yes, we all need that.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
there was definitely some rough moments of like, I don't have any
for
energy for
sure.
this, and I don't really want to do like the when you don't, especially when you don't have the revenue coming in yet, right? It's hard to keep going sometimes. Do stuff that feels very thankless down the line.
100%. 100%. And I don't know whether having done that for like 4 years straight helped me do it one last time, hopefully last. But that part of it at least last time. But yeah, no, it's I mean, the market is crazy draining. Like I'm very much an introverted person. Unless I'm like close with you or I'm talking about EG, like I'm very to myself. And so for 4 hours just to be going as hard, like on my emotional scale, like the output is crazy. So it's crazy how draining it is, but you're right. It's not difficult to get up and do it again the next week when you're like, all right, we're actually making revenue and we're getting product moving. Which for us at this point is the biggest thing is like getting product out and getting more people because it's just an awareness game still. Like
Hmm.
still just no like nobody like you were saying, like you think people are gonna know about you, like still and like just real like relatively nobody knows about us still. So
Yeah.
there's the people who find out about us like us, and we got to continue to get those people to then go tell other people and
And
just keep
because
that
you're
train going.
purposely not building a wholesale game right now, that's not part of your main strategy.
Right. Which was part of the other kind of pivot we did and something that I've had to learn where when you're first starting, there's so many voices to listen to, and you have no idea who's saying something that's right or wrong, or whether it's right or wrong for you. And I definitely, for a long time, was caught up chasing the shiny object. So we have intentionally pared down what we're focused on. So we're focused on only Instagram on social. Like we used to do TikTok, just cut that, even though it's just reposting a video and it's just 15 minutes. Like we're not doing it. We're not doing any wholesale. And then we did a lot of gyms last year trying to get in, but product just didn't move there. And so I was doing a ton of demos where I'd be there for like 3 hours and maybe sample to 20 people. Whereas now we're at a farmer's market one day a week for 4 hours and we're sampling to like 300 or 400 people.
Yeah.
So just trying to, with the other job, be intentional about where to focus the time this time around, and knowing it's growing slower than it potentially could if we were doing lots of different things or taking on outside investment. But my goal has never been to like build this and then sell it 5 years from now. Like I want to have a huge warehouse with like a massive gym for all our employees. Like that's the goal. The private jet is the fun thing to talk about, but like the real goal is like to have a huge warehouse where people can have a sick gym to work out in, and it's just like a great company culture. I've worked for other companies that aren't that way, and like that would be that, and making money for, if when we do a friends and family round, if while I'm making myself money, I can make my close friends and supporters like more money. Those are like the two long-term things that like actually matter. The private jet would just be fucking sweet.
Yeah.
Always been a dream.
Or the Masters, the golf round at the Masters.
If we got a private jet, I'll have a connection to Augusta. That's some way or somehow. The Gulfstream guy knows somebody, I'm
We were
sure.
trying to find a goal that was more emotionally salient than just money, right?
I have it. I don't know if we've talked about this, but if we hit 50,000 this year in revenue, which would be a huge jump for us, but like it could very well happen. I'm getting myself a new set of golf clubs. That's my emotional
Love
bet
that.
for the year, which it would be so sweet because that would be, I don't like, I wouldn't spend the money on that. So that would be a great reward for this. That's my short-term one. And
Yeah,
then we can figure out a different one later.
I love
But
that.
like you said, I don't really need that much. Like a nice dinner every now and then, and a decent gym, and that's about it. And good food. I spend a lot more money on like my food, like you were saying earlier,
Yeah.
on nice eggs and stuff like that. So people will spend money on
High
things that are
quality
important.
meats. And yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I love that you attached a fun goal like that. I remember when I launched Food Business Success, and I said, when I get to, remember, I think it was a couple grand in sales, like sold the first program, I was going to buy myself this espresso machine. That was going to be my gift to
Yeah,
myself for all that hard work. I launched it. I got two people in the program. So ironically, I did not hit the goal I wanted. I mean, I did launch it. And then my brother and sister-in-law gifted me, and I didn't tell anybody. They gifted me that espresso machine, the
really.
espresso machine.
Wow.
And I was like,
Hmm.
I will take it. Universe, I
Uh-huh.
will take it.
Yeah,
Thank you very
yeah,
much.
for sure. I
So
love that.
who knows? Maybe those golf clubs will just show up.
Maybe that would be crazy. That would be crazy. I will gladly take it as well.
I love it. All right, so we talked about quite a bit here. Is there where are you heading? Like you talked about the wanting employees, that you want your own
Hmm.
business that you're running and operating. Are you
Yeah.
going to own your man? Do you want to own the manufacturing, you think, or
I think
outsource it?
eventually it'd be really cool too. Because that's what I really jive with. Like, I would love to, first of all, hire somebody who knows way more about it than me. But then, like, that, I would find that piece really interesting. If eventually I could get to a place where, like, I'm like sitting in on sales and marketing meetings, and like, that would be ideal. So yeah, that's a ways down the road. Like, the immediate future, hopefully, like all like so much focus is going into this market, crushing this market, so that next year when we go to applications, we have a stronger application and we can expand this to three or four, because the cash flow at markets is just like crazy for a small business. Like it does,
Yeah.
like I didn't understand like how much it was going to like unlock, I guess. And it's, so that's not going to be probably like a long term, like super long term thing, but I think if we can scale the farmers markets for the next, I don't know, 3 to 5 years maybe, and like build that up to where it's maybe like a 500,000 and like just at markets, and we can just like bank that. These are all just like completely
This
random
is
numbers
why
too for anybody
Danny,
that's
but this
listening.
is why Danny still does markets. This is why Green
Right.
Valley still does
It's
markets. Like the cash flow is huge. And
The
it drives
casual
awareness.
and just the people that you can meet. Yeah, it's like, so I don't think anybody is like above starting at a farmer's market. So that like that's where a ton of focus goes. We're gonna do Amazon, which that'll be a really that's it'll almost be like starting another little business. So like that's kind of a big project that will happen sometime this year probably. And then really just trying to grow our subscriber base. So and like the more bars we sell and subscribers we get, like the cooler shit we're going to be able to do for them, which like that'll be one thing I'll task you with as we continue to grow and like we do have more revenue, like keeping the ethos of just like pouring it back into the customer so hard because like it truly like it shouldn't matter for the next like 10 years what our profit loss is for me. Like I don't I have such a long time horizon that like if we can just like become a company that is different from other ones, that's what we'll try to do, but we need more revenue to do that, to do some
Yeah.
more cool things like that. So
Yeah. Oh, I love
but
that.
that'll be like really fun to those stuff will be fun to plan once we can get there.
Here's the two things that I hope you take away as we wrap up that I get from this conversation with Scott is your willingness to have constraint is really powerful. And that you recognize, like, I have a limited bandwidth, right? I have a W-2 job. I have certain obligations. I want this business to be successful. And so you are willing to say no to things. And that's what a lot we do in Master Your Business, that CEO level
Mm-hmm.
work. And you do that a lot just on your own because of the personal growth stuff that you like. But you're willing to say no to things, even if maybe it's just in the short term, but you just recognize, like, I can't do it all. So I'd rather do one
Yep.
thing really well and go all in instead of try to be like, I do all the things and not do
Mm-hmm.
any of them very well. So
Mm-hmm.
that is huge. And I really hope people heard that and take that away. And then your patience that you're like in it for the long game.
It kind of gave that to me a little bit. You kind of got to be once you figure it out, you're like, oh, it's gonna be a while, and it is hard. There's a lot of things you read on like LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn, I think LinkedIn's like toxic for business people. So I like them not on it very. At least for like CPG, it's kind of like the
Yeah.
Instagram of CPG. Like everybody's like pumping their wins and like you feel like shit because this company's got this much revenue in 3 years. So like to be clear, that was like something I used to like struggle with all the time of like saying no, where to put my time and energy. So like for if you're listening and that's not you right now, like it wasn't me like very recently too. So but yeah, you just get to a point where you like some guy asked me, he was like, you want to go grab beers? And I was like, well, let's meet up, but can we do a workout? I texted that to a different friend. He's like, "That's classic you." I was like, "Yeah, but like, I don't get beers with like my best friends. Like, if you want to
Right.
get a workout and talk, like, let's do it." But yeah, you kind of got to just know what's right for you, and then stick to it. And then it feels great. And then you're like, "Wait, I'm just like doing the stuff I want to do. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not being pulled in directions I don't want to be," which that used to give me like a ton of anxiety and stuff. So try to get
And
away
the
from that.
third thing I think, as I think about it to wrap up, is you hire who's, but you don't hire, you have a good balance of like, I'm going to do some stuff myself. And this is what makes sense for me to DIY and to do myself. But then I'm also going to find who's. And you worked
Hmm.
with me and you've worked with Jane and you have definitely brought on contractors or coaches and different people to help you. So it's
For
really,
sure.
those are the three things that if you're listening to this, I hope that you take away from this conversation. And it's just so much fun to have like recount your journey. And I can't wait. We can have another episode in another 3 years and see where
There
you're
you
at.
go. It's been a while since I've talked about all that stuff. I've been so deep in the weeds. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah,
We'll see another
amazing.
3 years. Maybe I don't know. We'll at least have some warehouse space by then. Probably won't be
Good.
doing our own manufacturing by then.
Well, tell everybody where they can find you, follow you, because you're a lot of fun too. You do some really fun stuff over on Instagram. And so everybody should at least go follow you. And if not, like if you're in the Denver area, go say hi or go buy some bars because they really are awesome. I love them.
Yeah, if you're in Denver or Colorado area or at the Highlands Farmers Market every Sunday from 9 to 1, free samples. You don't have to buy anything. You talk to me though. And just at Elevated Gains on Instagram and elevatedgains.com. Pretty, like I said, pretty simple. We don't do it a ton of places, but do a lot of I try to keep it behind the scenes open and like actually what we're doing, which can definitely be better. I'm just posting on Instagram is just not my forte. Takes a lot of energy for me. And then we send like monthly like recaps of what's going on in the business, stuff like that to our email newsletter. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. You
those are
send
really the
out great
places.
emails too.
Shout out to Jane. We're working on some things. We're testing some things. So yeah,
Amazing. Always learning, always growing.
gotta be. Gotta
Don't know
be.
what you don't
Can't wait till I
know.
can hire these people who know way more than me, and then I can just be like, "Yeah, you do it. Great."
Oh, but you wouldn't know it was good work unless you had gone through all of
For
this.
sure, for sure. And I gotta still be know everything for like what do they say, like first 10 to 15 people, and then after that, you can really start to like go get the people who like just can take you to the next level. So
Right.
it's good to know everything, but yeah, we'll see where it goes. Who could say?
Okay. So fun to talk to you. Thanks for your time today, Scott. It's really
Yeah,
great.
thanks for having me. It was a
Okay.
blast.
Bye. The smartest thing you can do as an entrepreneur is to invest in a who to help you with the how, to speed up your journey and help you skip the line. When you are ready for more support and accountability to finally get this thing done, you can work with me in 2 ways. Get me all to yourself with one-on-one business coaching, or join Food Business Success, which includes membership inside Fuel, our community of food business founders that includes monthly live group coaching calls and so much more. It's one of my favorite places to hang out, and I would love to see you there. Go to foodbizsuccess.com to start your journey towards your own food business success.